these type of attacks that we see on Rashida Tlaib, seeing on Cori Bush on some extent, and really sort of like almost like the OG model for this were the attacks on Ilhan Omar when she first came into Congress by Democrats. Like, people forget this, but when Nancy Pelosi became Speaker of the House in 2018, they had this big bill, H.R. 1, which was a voting rights bill and sort of like had some stuff like that ultimately became Build Back Better. I mean, it was a very all-encompassing bill, and this was going to be their big legislative crowning achievement. This was what they were going to run on. And they're in the build-up to roll this out, Nancy Pelosi, spurred on by, folks like Gottheimer and others, started launching attacks on Ilhan Omar for being an anti-Semite and stepping. And it went on and on until eventually the Democrats realized, oh, wait a second. Folks like Marjorie Taylor Greene are actually like full-on lunatics. Maybe we should stop doing this. And meanwhile, they stepped all over their big H.R. 1. They were complaining months later, how come we got no media attention? Because you created this whole story about Ilhan Omar. Now,
for criticizing AIPAC.
Fortunately, to some extent, we've moved past that. Because of the nature of like the demographics, and we don't have Pelosi's leadership, and we've moved past some of that, where Democrats realize like you don't participate in these type of pile-ons, but it has still left them vulnerable to this because of what was created in the sort of like right-wing sort of like neural pathways. Here is Marjorie Taylor Greene, who you'll remember. The first time she was in Congress, she was drunk.
Allegedly. Well, I say that. I've joked about that. We don't know.
She
seemed drunk. Yes.
And was pushing up like the mail slot in AOC's office.
With a bunch of her buddies.
Are you in there? I mean, come on.
We know she loves to party.
Here she is now. Coming out with a completely baseless smear on Ilhan Omar.
Today I introduced a censure resolution against Ilhan Omar. And the reason why I did that, and I'll just say this, censure is not going far enough. If it were up to me, we would expel Ilhan Omar and deport her out of the United States. Her comments are outrageous. She's acting as a foreign agent within our very government.
Pause it.
She said...
All right, let's see how much. There was a story in The Lever today that AIPAC is about to spend $90 million. $90 million. Do we have, at some point, Bradley, could you look up how many members of Congress take money from AIPAC?
Yeah.
Because if you want to accuse anyone of being an agent for a foreign government, there was a guy that just stood down on the floor, a representative from a Republican representative, in an Israeli IDF uniform, okay? But that doesn't count because it's Israel, and because right-wingers love Israel because they want the Jews to go back there and die and get burned in hellfire so Jesus comes back, and also because like neocons love Israel because of the way that we can use our support of Israel as an opportunity to continue to kill more Arabs in the Middle East. Like that is the foreign influence that we're talking about here. But because she wears a hijab and because she was a refugee from another country, she's the foreign agent.
And we Bowman's primary challenger, his biggest donor is AIPAC. We should say that like Summer Lee's challenger is using the same technique that was used against Nina Turner, calling for Republicans to cross over and vote in the Democratic primary to get Summer Lee out, who was one of the few challengers to withstand the AIPAC tsunami in the last election cycle. But all right, continue.
The U.S. government will only do what Somalians in the U.S. tell them to do. They will do what we want and nothing else. They must follow our orders, and that is how we will safeguard the interest of Somalia. She also said,
Well,
Twitter sucks. I mean, do we even need, like, it's just racism.
Okay. And so it turns out that oddly, turns out she in fact did not say that. Here is Caitlin Collins on CNN.
Ambassador from that breakaway region posted a version of her comments online. The translation on the clip claimed that she said this: the U.S. government will only do what Somalians in the U.S. tell them to do. They will do what we want and nothing else. They must follow our orders, and that is how we will safeguard the interest of Somalia. Now, CNN translated her speech. Here's what she actually said. Quote, the United States government would do what we tell them to do. We need to have confidence as Somali people. We live in this country. This is the country that we pay taxes in. This is the country where a girl was born from you all who is sitting in Congress. Ambassador from...
Seems like a very different message, isn't it?
I'm shocked.
I mean, even the first message, like, how could you...
I don't even understand. That's why we didn't talk about this, because I couldn't even understand what they were saying she was doing.
They're claiming that Somalia dictates the terms to America.
Look at the news, guys. That's not really the concern right now.
Yeah. To answer, thank you, Bradley, for sending this, my question from earlier. The Israel lobby gave Congress $58 million last cycle, and only 33 members did not receive donations. So, like, look, I mean, I don't even like the framing of calling members of Congress who receive money from the Israel lobby foreign agents. Like, that's not correct. Although many of them act very much in Israel's interest after they get a bunch of money.
Yep.
But if we're going to talk about foreign agents and who's serving a foreign government, it's pretty clear what how that's panning out right in front of our eyes right now.